It would be a shame if not every university stopped what it was doing whenever a major accident happens, like at TTU, like at UCLA, and take it as an opportunity to examine their own safety practices to determine what similarities there are.
The CSB investigated the Texas Tech accident, producing a case study that the board believes includes important safety lessons for academia as a whole.
The CSB is concerned with laboratory safety because it's an area that appears, in comparison to industry, pretty unregulated.
In January 2010, 2 graduate students at Texas Tech University were conducting research on energetic or explosive compounds, funded by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The students were tasked with synthesizing and performing tests on a new compound, a derivative of nickel hydrazine perchlorate. Initially, the compound was made in small batches of less than 300 milligrams. But the 2 students were concerned about potential variability among different small batches of the compound, which could affect later test results. So they decided to scale up the synthesis to make a single batch of approximately 10 grams, enough for all of their testing. They believed that keeping the solid compound wet with a solvent would keep it from exploding. After producing the larger batch, the more senior graduate student observed that it contained clumps that he believed needed to be broken up prior to testing. While wearing safety goggles, he transferred half of the new compound into a mortar, covered the compound with a solvent, and used a pestle to gently break up the clumps. After some time, he took his goggles off and walked away. A short time later, he decided to stir the compound once again. He did not replace his goggles. As the pestle pressed against the compound, it detonated. The graduate student was seriously injured, his left hand severely damaged by the force of the explosion, causing the loss of 3 fingers, perforation of his eye, and cuts and burns to other parts of his body. Post-accident photos and video show extensive damage as the explosion fractured the lab bench, shattered bottles, and sprayed the lab with projectiles. Professor Dominic Casadante was head of the Texas Tech Chemistry Department at the time of the accident.
From my perspective as department chair, you go through the emotional trauma of, oh my gosh, somebody that I know has gotten very seriously hurt, to soul-searching, why did this happen?
With these academic incidents, people like to focus on the immediate actions of the individual involved and try to poke holes and with hindsight, assert some sort of blame on the incident, on the individual involved. And what we have to recognize is that there are bigger systems at play here that can influence safety.
The CSB investigation at Texas Tech found deficiencies in each layer of safety management within the institution. These included insufficient safety accountability and oversight by the principal investigators, the chemistry department, and the university's administration. And according to investigators, there were also important gaps beyond the university itself.
I think that the way we were a year and a half ago is pretty representative of the way that a lot of universities, especially chemistry departments, are around the country. The main lesson I would really like, and it's the way that I start a lot of my talks on safety, is there but for the grace of God go you. That is to say, your universities.
The victim at Texas Tech had been working on the energetic materials project for about a year at the time of the accident. But the CSB found that he did not receive any specific formal training on working with potentially explosive compounds. The 2 principal investigators believed they had verbally established a 100 milligram limit on the production of energetic materials. But the CSB investigation found there was no formal system for communicating this limit or verifying compliance. None of the lab researchers believed that a strict 100 milligram limit existed.
When graduate students go into these new endeavors, a new project, a new process, they need to get specific training, and they need to have it ensured and have it assessed. Do they really understand what it is they're doing?
And the CSB found that the use of personal protective equipment within Texas Tech laboratories was not consistently enforced.
When we were at TTU, we learned that many people made the decision whether or not to wear their personal protective equipment based on the level of danger they felt that they were about to undertake.
One of the issues that the CSB examined with the TTU incident was safety accountability. How do universities and academic institutions ensure that people are working in a safe environment? What we found at TTU was that the organizational structure was such that individuals that were responsible for doing safety inspections did not have direct authority or oversight over the principal investigators and their laboratories.
Prior to the accident, the whole safety management structure reported to the Vice President for Administration and Finance. After this accident, the Provost and the President and I looked at this very carefully and decided that a new reporting structure was required.
Dr. Taylor Amy is the Vice President for Research at Texas Tech University. Since the accident, Texas Tech has modified its organizational structure so that the Environmental Health and Safety Director reports to Dr. Amy, who also has authority over the principal investigators.
We did this because we wanted to have this safety culture, this changing safety culture, to have a chance to grow and become part of the fabric of the institution. We needed to connect it more closely to the academic life of faculty.
The CSB investigation determined there had been 2 previous near misses within the laboratories of the same principal investigators since 2007. While no one was injured, CSB investigators concluded there were similarities in the causes of these incidents to the January 2010 explosion. But these key lessons were missed at the time of the earlier incidents.
The CSB would like to see TTU and really all universities create a tracking system to document the accidents that are happening so that they can facilitate learning, not just in the laboratory where the accident happened, but really in all laboratories.
One of the areas that the CSB examined with the TTU case was the role of the grant funding agency in regard to safety.
The CSB determined that the Department of Homeland Security, which funded the research at Texas Tech through an agreement with Northeastern University, had a general condition stating that the safety of researchers was the responsibility of the various host institutions. However, DHS did not impose any specific safety requirements for research with energetic materials, and Texas Tech did not evaluate the hazards or develop any specific university safety policies.
Grant funding bodies can play a huge role in influencing safety by including stipulations and requirements in their grant applications.
Because Texas Tech is a public institution in a state that lacks its own workplace safety program, it is not required to abide by the federal OSHA laboratory safety standard. But Texas Tech officials did voluntarily develop a chemical hygiene plan, using the OSHA laboratory standard as guidance. The Chemical Safety Board recommended that the American Chemical Society develop a methodology for evaluating and controlling hazards in academic research laboratories. The board also recommended that Texas Tech University should revise and expand its chemical hygiene plan to ensure that the physical hazards of chemicals are controlled, and develop and implement an incident and near-miss reporting system.
There's a lot of momentum here for safety consciousness on campus, but it shouldn't have had to come to that. Don't wait for a serious accident to happen on your campus to begin to think about safety and transform your own culture.
When we think about the role of principal investigators and senior campus administrators in lab safety programs, I have concerns because in many places I feel they are not providing the leadership in this that's needed.
Dr. James Kaufman is the president of the Laboratory Safety Institute, a nonprofit organization which provides safety training for universities.
Academic institutions encourage their students to achieve excellence in their work. They need to apply that same high standard to their laboratory safety programs, environmental health and safety programs.
To achieve a high safety standard, the CSB investigation identified key laboratory safety lessons for universities. Ensure that research-specific hazards are evaluated and then controlled by developing specific written protocols and training. Expand existing laboratory safety plans to address the physical hazards of chemicals. Ensure that safety personnel report directly to a university official who has the authority to oversee research laboratories and implement safety improvements. Document and communicate all laboratory near misses and incidents. To obtain the CSB's case study on the Texas Tech University laboratory accident, please visit csb.gov.